Today, we're talking to Lee Zen, CTO at Yahoo, about what Yahoo is up to 30 years into their journey as one of the most trafficked websites. Thanks to Fin for sponsoring this episode. To learn more about the #1 AI agent for customer support, go to fin.ai/CTO. You're listening to Joel Beasley, Modern CTO.
I want to know what's going on at Yahoo. Like, everybody knows Yahoo. I think you just celebrated your 30th anniversary.
We did, yeah.
Okay.
We did.
Yeah. So what's going on now? What's the difference? I haven't thought much about Yahoo from being a kid. I'm 38.
Yep.
So like being a kid, seeing it, being one of my first email addresses I've ever had. Fast forward to my mid 20s, I used it for some financial data. And then fast forward to now, what's been going on?
Well, yeah. Thanks for congratulating us on the 30-year anniversary. It's a huge milestone. I think not many companies make it to 30 years. And it is a very storied internet property. It's a top 5 U.S. internet property still. And so even though I think the way you were like, haven't really thought about it in a while. Most Americans interact with Yahoo, every single month. Like I think something like 90% of the U.S. population visits Yahoo at least once a month in some way. And it's funny because I've had people when I took this job were like, oh yeah, I guess I do use Yahoo. And I think it's so ingrained in the fabric of what people do that kind of they've almost forgotten that they're using Yahoo, because whether you're using fantasy sports or you're checking a stock quote or you're checking a piece of email or whatever it is, looking at your news, you're interacting with Yahoo in some way. And I think people often kind of tend to forget that, I guess.
You're exactly right, because that's me. I mean, I use your stock quote stuff every day, and I didn't even think about it. And then I also see Yahoo News gets piped into different applications I use, and I see that little Yahoo News logo. So those two things are in my life on a weekly basis.
Yeah, or people interact with our weather app and kind of, I did check the weather today.
You do have a good weather app. I do remember that, yeah. That's crazy.
But going back to your question about kind of what's new, I think really the new thing for us is we're taking a very modern take on, the original mission of the company, right? So the original mission of the company was to help people navigate the digital wilderness. That's still what we're doing today. I think one of the things I guess that's unfortunate, let's say, about the way the internet's evolved over the last 30 years is actually gotten more wild, let's say. If you think about going back 30 years ago when Yahoo started, that was the mission. It was, hey, there's this vast digital wilderness that's unorganized. Let's help people figure out how to navigate this thing, how to find the right resources, et cetera, et cetera. And you would think it's gotten better over 30 years. And Yahoo's obviously done a lot to improve the internet, but actually kind of as much of the gains as we've made over the last 30 years, the internet has been exponential in becoming more wild. And so, with still the original mission, that we're trying to tackle here, but with a more modern twist, let's say, we're using AI for a lot of our things. We're using the cloud, right? So it's a modern take on that original mission of how do we help people live their lives and navigate that digital wilderness.
So that's every day, everyone at Yahoo is waking up with this mantra of taming the digital wilderness.
Yeah, we want to be that trusted guide, right? We want to help people really accomplish what they want to do with life. And that's why we still focus on those core areas I just talked about, right? People are trying to, have a healthy financial life. They're trying to manage their lives through mail and calendar and, make sure they have their life in order. They're trying to, be entertained. They want to understand what's going on in the world around them, get context about the news. It's really about helping someone live a good life.
And what's the big business side? Like, what are the big areas of revenue generation? Is it the news and the financial data, or?
Most of Yahoo's revenue still comes through advertising, right?
Okay.
We're advertising funded. We have various subscription options as well. You can subscribe to, mail storage or, finance. There's a subscription tiers. Fantasy, there's a, subscription there as well if you want to have some of the more advanced features and functionality. But by and large, most of our revenue is advertising based.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So that's why you're constantly seeking to bring value through weather, through news, through stock information. And then that value is then monetized through advertising. Yeah,
exactly. And it's kind of funny. I think we're, in some sense, if you think about the way the web has evolved, some parts of the web have actually become more closed off, right? Where it's gated behind a paywall or it's gated behind some of the subscription. I think Yahoo has still very much held true to that idea of an open web that can be funded and supported by advertising in a way that is both respectful of consumers, right? We are very cautious about privacy. We want to make sure the advertising we're sending you is relevant, that it's actually stuff that makes sense for you in that context. But at the same time, make the web still open and free for people to use in a meaningful way.
And then people using it do you see any trends with age ranges?
Yeah, that's super interesting too. I think right now, roughly half our users are millennial Gen Z. And so we are getting this whole set of users who maybe didn't even, know about Yahoo like as a new thing. Like Yahoo was new when I was growing up, let's say, like it didn't exist. And then all of a sudden it existed. There is a whole set of users now who are using Yahoo where like it's always been around, which is also kind of interesting to think about for sure.
Real quick, thank you to Finn for sponsoring this episode. Finn is the #1 AI agent for customer service with a 65% average resolution rate. Finn is built to handle complex multi-step queries like returns, exchanges, and disputes, delivering high-quality, personalized answers just like your best human agent. Finn is trusted by over 5,000 customer service leaders and top AI companies, including Anthropic and Synthesia. Finn works on any help desk. You don't have to overhaul your current system to get the best AI agent for customer service. Priced at only 99 cents per resolution with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you're ready to transform your customer service experience, find out how at fin.ai/CTO. And then how did you get involved in all of this? How long have you been there and how did you get there?
Yeah, I've been at Yahoo for just about a year. Actually just crossed my 1-year mark a few weeks ago. Prior to Yahoo, I've worked in a number of different roles, big companies, small companies. But what really attracted me to coming here was really just the opportunity to work at such a storied brand, and B, to have a really huge impact across the organization. Yahoo happens to be working a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in terms of platform engineering. Like we're undergoing this massive shift to cloud, and then also AI. And those are two areas I've worked in my whole career. So it's great to be the intersection of that.
All right, let's talk about those. So you're doing a massive shift right now. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, up until the last few years, most of Yahoo has been operating, on premise. We've always, we've been running our data centers for the last 30 years, basically. And we had data centers globally. We have data centers in the US, in Asia, in Europe. And all of our infrastructure was in those data centers. Over the last few years, we've been shifting more and more of our workloads into the cloud and, building in a way that is more cloud native, let's call it. That's really unlocked a lot of development velocity, iteration velocity for us, right? We're able to build on features much more quickly. You're not waiting for hardware to show up to go do that new thing. That's been very beneficial. And we're also able to take advantage of more managed services as a result too.
You've been at different companies and now you're at Yahoo and we can edit anything we want to edit.
Sure.
How does the culture feel? Like, does it feel like modern Silicon Valley style company or does it feel older?
It's interesting. It's a combination, I would say, of those things. No company I've worked for has really been, the same in any real way. Maybe one way I would talk about it is this. I think, because I worked at Amazon for a long time. And one of the things about working at Amazon is a lot of the tooling is all in-house. And so actually Amazon in many ways doesn't use a lot of kind of, let's call it modern tools. Like obviously everything's building is, relatively cutting edge and at the forefront of technology, being the technology company it is. But as an engineer there, you don't get to use necessarily a lot of stuff that's out there. Like you're not using, the latest and greatest technologies that are being built as SaaS, elsewhere. At Yahoo, we actually do quite a bit of that in contrast. So, we're using, the latest, greatest technologies across the spectrum. And we're not really limited necessarily either by, feeling obligated to dog food our own stuff the way that, during my time at Amazon, I would say we would be. So I think that's actually interesting, like where that part I would say feels very modern. So I was at HelloFresh before I came to Yahoo. HelloFresh was, I would say, relatively bleeding edge, let's call it, where, most of the stack is using all things that were built in the last few years. And that's true here at Yahoo as well. The difference, I would say, when you talk about kind of does it feel modern or not, is we have all the new stuff, but we also have all the old stuff because we're in this modernization journey. And so to give you an example, in observability, some parts of our system are using OTel, right? So it's open telemetry, and we're using, various SaaS providers for open telemetry. All that is a very modern stack. It's going into Grafana dashboards. It looks a certain way that you would expect, quote unquote, in a modern stack. At the same time, we're still running the original kind of metrics stack that was built, over a decade ago, which is still really relevant. And, if you think about it, it's actually pretty amazing kind of, hey, this metric stack was built over a decade ago that was built to scale to, Yahoo top 5 inner property scale. It's still working. We're still maintaining it. We still feed tons of metrics through that. But obviously it has not kept up in terms of the feature pace as, some of the more modern equivalents do. So it's missing some of the same features that you would expect in, say, like Prometheus or whatever. But so we have both, right? That's, I think, probably where it's modern, yet other parts don't feel so modern, let's say.
But you're enjoying it. This past year has been a fun year for you.
Oh yeah, it's been super fun. I think like I mentioned, just the iconic brand. It's been fun to work at a company like that. But I think kind of moreover, both from a technology perspective, like I said, this transformation journey is super fun. And also just the cultural journey is also very fun. And, really, I think one of the things I've really been focused on this past year is helping my team really find its own way in being a product-oriented team and kind of really embracing platform engineering. That's been a big focus of mine over the last year.
Help me understand the scale as far as when you're going in there and working on this big shift. How do you communicate your ideas to people?
Yeah, it's through a lot of variety of different forums, right? And it's I think communication, I would say, happens in a number of ways. There's obviously what you would expect when you think about communication. So email, Slack, written communication. And there's also obviously various verbal communication channels. And so I think, just talking about those briefly, obviously there's been a lot of emails or documents that I've been sending out about how do we want to approach some of these problems? How are we approaching AI, or how are we approaching platform engineering? How are we doing those things? Verbally, there's been lots of various communications. For example, during all hands, or, we have a monthly open house, try to tell people the story of, okay, where are we going as a platform engineering organization? How are we being customer oriented? How are we thinking about the shift in terms of how we're doing AI, et cetera? So there's all those forms. But actually, I think one of the good things about communication is it's not just those kinds of communication, but it's also, let's call it like the mechanisms and the actions that you do that are also very communicative, right? And so, for example, one of the things I think that is a form of communication, let's call it, is, we instituted a weekly operations meeting where we've been a lot more hardcore, let's call it, about reviewing postmortems and reviewing operational dashboards and metrics. And that, to me, is one way I was communicating to the team, hey, we have to be a lot more rigorous about how we're approaching our operations without, necessarily like writing a memo about, hey, let's be hardcore about, operations.
That's so this AI document about how you're approaching AI. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the presentations I gave in conjunction with our COO a few months ago was really about talking to the organization about, hey, we need to really think about how we're working and kind of really approach our work with a different lens. And I think we really break it down into kind of three different buckets, how we work, how we build, and how we serve. And how do we infuse AI into those three different areas? How we serve is really about, how are we serving our customers, and are we using AI responsibly, right, around making sure that it's a great experience for consumers. The how we build portion is really about developers. How are we actually helping our developers utilize AI to go build more effectively, efficiently with higher quality, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the how we work side, it's really about, how are we just as general employees all able to take advantage of these technologies and really go from AI being a tool to try to find ways to use AI as a coworker, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually really offload more of our work to AI versus kind of sitting in this, back and forth loop, let's say, where I think one of the things I really believe, sorry, this is a brief tangent, but just I really do think that, one of the key shifts we all have to make sure we're enabling is getting the interactivity aspect of AI down for humans. So we're not sitting in front of the, prompt or whatever it is, or cursor or whatever tool you're using, kind of getting to a point where we actually only have to touch it, with human hands once a day, right? Or, once a week or something like that. Versus I think today, a lot of times the feedback loops are on the order of minutes, right? Versus on the order of hours or days. And that's kind of what I'm trying to shift us more toward is, okay, we need humans in the loop, but how do we have more AI stuff happening in the background, and then we only check in, on a less frequent basis?
I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a guy who's at a healthcare company. Has about 2,000 people or so in engineering. And he was sharing how they internally ran this contest where he gave parameters of the tools that could be used, and he time boxed it. And then he pulled in, I think, like 50 different leaders and cross-functional people in different teams. And he said, here's the toolkit, use it to make your life easier. And then the people submitted how they were using it, and they took like the top 3 and then productized them and then rolled them out to their departments. And I thought that was a pretty interesting way of deploying. Like, I've heard a lot of different ideas on how to do it, but functionally this year, that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, we definitely been doing, a lot of kind of, like, for example, in my team, we ran an innovation day a few months ago. We're doing actually another one this month. So kind of having those opportunities to let people experiment, I think is super important, especially given how new a lot of this tooling is. I think sharing examples is actually one of the most important things teams can be doing. And I think that's what's also been great about, I'm super grateful for anyone on the internet who's published anything about what they're doing, because I think seeing how you can apply it is super helpful, and kind of sharing those ideas about, okay, this works, this doesn't, here's a workflow I've constructed, here's how I'm using this, here's how I'm approaching that, here's how I'm thinking about context, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's also been super helpful. I think one thing I would say is that's hard is getting out of the mode of what am I good at versus what can I offload. And what I mean by that is, I think there are just so many things we as, humans and as workers are accustomed to, and kind of like, well, that's up my alley, so I'm going to go do it. And so I think it's very easy to default into just doing something versus pausing for a second and thinking, wait, maybe I can just not do this. A super silly example that I give to my own team a bunch is, it was about half a year ago, I went to some conference, and I missed a bunch of the talks. I couldn't go to every talk I wanted to go to. And so I was like, okay, let me just download a bunch of these talks and I'll watch them on the plane. And that'll be great. And, I had favorited a bunch of them from the agenda list. And I ended up writing a script to go through, take the favorites and, run them through this downloader, because I guess maybe I shouldn't say this in your podcast, but they were on YouTube and, like,
yeah, of
there's
course.
no easy download button on YouTube. So, but I remember like, oh, I'm an engineer. Like, I know how to do that. And so it's like, oh, I brew installed whatever the YouTube downloader CLI
I know what you're talking about. I just did
right?
this like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then let me like brew install this YouTube downloader tool. Like, then I'll just build the script. I'll loop through my favorite things from that page and then have it download them. And then I'll watch them on the plane. Perfect. It probably only took me like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to put together, right? It's kind of like, yeah, I know exactly what to do. I know what I'm doing. I know the things I need to do to make it happen. And it all worked. And I was happily watching the videos on the plane. But kind of after the fact, I realized maybe this would have taken like 3 or 4 minutes of me just prompting, an LLM, like, hey, this is what I want to do. Here's the page. Do all this stuff for me. And I would have saved myself 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I didn't do that because I'm just so accustomed to, I know exactly what to do. Right. So to get out of that mind space of, I know exactly what to do. It doesn't matter if I know exactly what to do. What matters is, can I offload this? I think that's actually a hard mindset shift, I would say. Even however many times I've repeated this, I still have times where I'm like, after the fact, realizing, oh yeah, actually, I could have offloaded that.
Well, the reason why you're hesitant is because you have experience, and the experience will tell you that if you know how to do something, like a very specific way, that's usually the shortest path.
Right.
Because you could try to implement, like, take it back to, you're going to do a rewrite. You're not going to learn a new framework doing a rewrite. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to be learning the new syntax and the new method calls and all that stuff. What you need to do right now is achieve business results, right? And so if you know that there is a rabbit hole that it could turn into, like, you trying to figure out how to get an AI to do that could end up taking you 2 weeks.
That's true too.
Yeah. So then you lean toward, this is the same thing that I wrestle with all the time too. But there are some points when you have major shifts in technology when you have to just take a look, and usually it's really loud. A lot of people are saying it. Yeah, I recently got into like Cursor and using the LLMs to figure out exactly how I want to write projects and like how to use it. And at first I was like not that impressed. And then my best friend sent me a video of what he was doing. And I said, oh, I'm just using the tool wrong. And then I learned from him, and that just made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that goes back to, I think, just the examples, right? I think kind of being able to see how far some people are able to take this tooling and kind of what you can achieve, I think kind of forces us to really think about, okay, what can I really offload here?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Artifact. So you guys acquired Artifact. They're an AI news aggregator. It doubled your news app usage. Were you involved with that transaction at all?
No, I wasn't. That happened before I joined the company. So I wasn't involved in the transaction.
How does it come up in your day-to-day life now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of technology from that acquisition was incorporated into the recommendation systems we are building and are continuing to improve on for news. So that's where it would show up the most, I would say.
Nice. Your CEO said, if we don't innovate, we die. What are you like? Do you feel pressure to innovate?
No pressure or anything. No, I mean,
no pressure.
I full-heartedly agree. I mean, I think that's the world we live in terms of just how products work and what consumers expect, right? I think if we are not constantly innovating and we're not able to continually meet new needs and find ways to make things better and easier for customers, we won't survive. And that is why, like if you go look at the Yahoo homepage and you look at across all our properties, almost every pixel is new over the last couple of years. Like we really have been spending a lot of our effort on, when I talk about modernization, it's not just, hey, let's change the way the underlying stack works and let's just rip out all to your point about refactoring, like we are looking for business results. It's not just, okay, yeah, refactor for the sake of refactoring, right? We are trying to, find ways to innovate faster, to let teams build faster, and so that ultimately they can build new capabilities, new features to continue to please our customers.
When you joined, what's something that surprised you? because Yahoo's this storied brand. As you've said, you have all of the stuff in your mind about what it could be or what it should be. And then you join, you start working there. What's something that surprised you?
Maybe one kind of funny thing, this is not so much from a technology perspective, but from just an organizational perspective, is, obviously, the company that is Yahoo today came out of, Verizon Media Oath, right? From before. And depending on who you talk to, depending on where they came from, they actually kind of talk about it slightly differently, I guess. So a lot of the folks who were around, because part of the company's AOL, right? And so for the folks who were originally on the AOL part of the business, they often refer to it as when we bought Yahoo, which is correct. Like, I guess the way historically it worked was, I think Verizon acquired AOL, and then that entity then acquired Yahoo, and so but just kind of given the brand recognition and the way that we're obviously Yahoo now, it's always like, wait. You think, yeah, it always gives me a second pause where it's like, oh yeah, you're right. When we acquired Yahoo, it kind of said this kind of like funny, inverse relationship thing you don't quite expect.
So did just Yahoo spin out, or did AOL stay at Verizon Media, or did the whole thing?
It's one entity. Yeah, we're just one entity combined entity now. Yeah.
So you are AOL and Yahoo.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, that is so cool. Do you guys still have AIM? Do we have AIM still?
We don't have AIM anymore. No.
Oh no. Oh man, that was the first bot I ever talked to, is this bot called Smarter Child.
I remember that. Yes.
Do you remember Smarter Child?
I remember interacting with Smarter Child as well. Yeah, it was good times. Like Smarter Child was a better version, I guess, of, I remember going all the way back to like, playing with Eliza, right? So yeah, lots of bots that I've played with, but I do remember IMing with Smarter Child. Yes.
Yes, that was middle school days for me. So what's the coolest feature? I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff you can't tell us about, which is exciting, and maybe off the podcast. But on the podcast, what's the coolest AI thing that you can tell us about?
It's hard to pick. I think I would say I would either pick the TLDR features in Mail, because I love having the summaries. I think it's super useful to just, get a quick snapshot of, okay, here's what's going on in my email. It's either that or the AI features in fantasy, because I often still spend. It's kind of like unfair to the AI that I do this, but I'll still spend a bunch of time researching, what I want to do with my lineups and stuff like that. And really, I should just rely on the AI GM, because it does just know better. But
have you seen that study with doctors that they did?
No.
Okay, so my brother and mom are physicians, so we always have these good technology conversations, and they hate when I text them certain things. So there was a study done where they took AI alone, AI with doctors, and doctors alone, and the group that did the worst, tell me which group did the worst. And I'll give you some more background. They took known patient data with the known outcomes, like verified outcomes, and then they only gave it the first part, and it was like this controlled test. And which group did the worst, do you think?
I'm going to guess doctors alone did the worst.
Nope, doctors with AI did the worst.
Okay.
So that was the finding.
Okay. I thought it was going to be that they did the worst, and then with the AI, they would have done the same, let's call it, or something like that.
That's what I thought too. Honestly, I thought the same as you. I was very surprised to find out. And so the underlying takeaway was that they don't trust the AIs. So the AI gave them the right answer.
That's really funny.
Yeah, but they didn't trust it, but doctors alone just coming to the conclusion was good. Doctors with AI, not as good. And then the AIs were better than all threes. That's the rank. The AI was the best, and then doctors with AI was the worst.
That's really funny.
Have you had a chance to use AI for like any medical stuff, like reading your lab results or anything like that?
I can't say that I have. I have consulted for kind of like, I've been doing some like physical therapy type stuff, just because I had like some knee stuff, and I've used it for that. Like, hey, help me construct, some physical therapy exercises to kind of keep on going and kind of improving my knee stability. But beyond that, I don't think I've really used it for like, go read this chart or something like that.
Oh, I have. I get blood tests like quarterly, and because my parents, they own like a medical clinic for health stuff. They're doctors, and so they just have me, do tests and things like that. And I put the blood test data into the AI and then had it and then I called the doctor and I was like, all right, read me these results. And then I could check the doctor against it. It was so interesting. It's a lot of fun for me because that's very empowering. I mean, a lot of the platforms are trying to shut it down as much as possible for liability reasons, which I totally get. But there are unfiltered AIs like Venice AI. Have you come across that?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. If you want like a private AI, Venice AI is where to go.
Interesting. No, yeah. I definitely seen, the various examples on, social media where people have, something that they could just never figure out. And then they spend a few sessions chatting back and forth with an LLM. And then it's like, oh, yep, it figured it out. Like it was, whatever. Just no one had ever connected all the dots.
Have you used it for parenting at all?
I have. I've used it for a lot of various other purposes. Just not the medical charts, but yeah, parenting. Even like one thing I like using LLMs for is really around kind of like challenge circles, right?
Oh, I don't know what those are.
It's the idea of like, hey, I'm thinking this, like be contrarian to me, like challenge me on that idea. So be the devil's advocate kind of person that I can talk to let's go back and forth on this and really explore if this is going to be good or not. And I use that actually all the time from a work perspective, right? It's like, okay, here's an idea I have, like, around, changing maybe the way a mechanism works or changing the way, something might work. And I'll definitely consult, in AI and have it act as a contrarian to try to poke holes into, hey, maybe this isn't going to work out so well, and tell me what is going to go wrong.
No, I like that. So when I'm prompting it, I'm doing very similar thing, but in my mind, instead of challenge circles, I ask it for perspective iterations. I was like, iterate through, like, here's how I see it, iterate through multiple perspectives and let me know like how different people might see it. And that tends to work out pretty well for me.
Nice.
Yeah. That's so cool. So the coolest AI feature you could tell us about, what was that again?
Oh, I was saying, maybe if I had to pick one, I'll go with go to chat.yahoo.com. You should be able to interact with it. So it's part of our search. But if you go to chat.yahoo.com, you can interact with our chat interface.
What's the name? Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Does it have a name?
It does not have. It's not like
you didn't personify
it's not branded
it
like Cortana or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, you guys got to have the fun. Have you ever had, I don't know Yahoo's history, maybe I could ask the chat, but have they ever had any type of mascot?
I don't know the answer to that.
Ever?
Maybe
we're going to do this right
should.
now. Yeah, you should know this. Had any type of mascot?
I mean, obviously the thing that Yahoo is most associated with is our Yodel. And I think,
that's in my head.
If anything,
yeah.
that's the mascot, I guess, is,
Do you ever do that in your meetings? Do you just go, Yahoo? Do you ever do that?
I am not someone you want to sing. So I can't do that. I'm still waiting actually for, we have a, company store where you can buy, company swag and cool stuff like that.
Okay.
And one of the items that was sold out last time I checked is there's a little button that you have on your desk, and it plays the Yodel when you hit the button.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for that to be back in stock, and help. Then I can just slap the button and get the Yodel to come out.
Okay, I have an answer here from Yahoo AI Chat. Yes, Yahoo has had a mascot in the past. The most notable one was the Jumping Y Guy, which was introduced in 1995. Designed as a stylized yellow figure that resembled a person jumping for joy, forming the letter Y with its body.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's good lore to know.
Jumping Y Guy.
Yeah.
There we go. I also have some more lore for you. The original Yahoo, when they put the founders together, they had gone to Guy Kawasaki to run, to be a part of that, essentially to lead it. And he turned it down. And he said it only cost him a few $1 billion. I just got to talk with him. It was perfect timing because I did an interview with him like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he just randomly shared that Yahoo story, and I was like, we've got Lee coming on the show in like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Well, I have a kind of like a personal connection to Yahoo in some sense as well. I guess maybe like a, let's complete the circle kind of thing, let's say. Because, obviously Jerry Yang, actually, by the way, he went to Stanford, and I went to Stanford. And actually, got to take a lot of the same, I wouldn't say exactly the same path as him, but obviously had an opportunity to kind of be in the same place as he was on campus, albeit in different decades. But kind of cool to think about, hey, like this was started by Jerry and David and, Stanford guys. And, as a Stanford alum, get to kind of tread in their footsteps. And still, like I said, the brand is such an amazing company.
Well, I want to wrap up with a couple different leadership questions if you're cool with that.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Authenticity as a leader, how important is that?
That's probably one of the most important things in my book. I think I really care about bringing your authentic self, let's say, to work. I think it's really important to lead in a way that is true to your own values. So I think authenticity is super important to me. And I think that the two things I care most about are authenticity and transparency, like honesty and transparency.
Do you reflect that pretty well as a parent?
I try to. I think it's a little different with kids because I think they don't have the life experience necessarily in all cases that you can trust that they'll do the right thing with all the context, let's call it. Whereas at work, in my mind, my goal is to give the best context I can to every employee so that they can, autonomously go and kick butt, right? So that they have all the information they need to do a great job. And really empowering people to have the autonomy to do that. And to do that requires them to have that context. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is to be as transparent as you can about, what's going on.
I love that. Yeah, because for me, I think we've got a lot of similarities because when I interact with people, my job is to knowledge transfer directly the most important details so they can do their thing and then point me in the right direction. I found that that's one of the most effective and fastest ways to get the result that I'm looking for. And so what I have also found is sometimes people aren't familiar with that level of direct communication. And my little secret, I guess, is I'll just ask for permission to speak like directly and like unfiltered and just knowledge dump. And I used to do that before and it would rub some people the wrong way. But once I realized like if I ask for permission, then it's okay. That's helped me a lot.
I like that. I don't know if I always ask for permission necessarily. I think to just, give people context. So maybe I'll try that. Because I'm not the smartest person, right, in the room, nor can I know everything or do everything. And so the only way I know how to make sure that as an organization, we do the best we can is if we are all empowered with knowledge, right? Because then, every individual person who is the best in their field and knows the most about their field and their domain has the business context, the technology context, the organizational context to go do what's best for the company.
And this is something that you look for when hiring too onto your team. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah, for sure.
How do you kind of fish that out in an interview, authenticity and transparency?
It's hard. I think, most of my interviewing relies on behavioral interviewing techniques, right? It's kind of just, I always talk through past stories and try to talk about, specifically talk through stories where leaders will have to had done hard things and they kind of understand how they approached those tough situations, right? And I like to think a lot of times, kind of how someone approaches situations comes through in an interview. And I think you really can get a decent sense, at least, of, what someone's character is going to be like.
So you'll share this story of how a leader handled a difficult situation and then kind of see how they respond.
Oh no, I'll ask them about kind of like, hey, tell me about a situation in your career where, you had to, X, Y, and Z, right? And kind of we talk through that.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. You get a lot of interesting stuff. I'm sure you've got a lot of good stories.
Yeah. I think it's a great, I love that kind of interview style, just talking through, people's like war stories, so to speak, right? Like, hey, let's talk about a time you had this huge deliverable that you said you were going to ship and then turns out you couldn't make it. Like, what'd you do? And I think you hear really interesting stories. And I just love hearing, I love stories actually. I think I like storytelling and I like hearing other people's stories. And I think it's a great way to understand how someone approaches problems and how they think about leadership.
Would you be open to sharing the hardest story of your professional career?
I mean, I'm definitely open to it. I'm trying to think like what I would consider the hardest. Maybe be more specific, I guess, and we can try there. That'll help maybe narrow down
the thing that you
hard.
most didn't want to do, but you knew you had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could talk about that. It's probably more of like a personal story, actually.
That's okay.
So it's probably less to do with the organization, but kind of more about a personal choice where, this goes back to my role at Bloomy, where I was the VP of engineering there. And I think the thing that was really hard was deciding to leave the company, actually, because I thought, if I think about trying to pull myself back in that mindset, and Bloomy still is such a great product. I love the product. I love the team. Everything was great, actually. Like, there's kind of like, why would I leave? But I think one of the things I realized over the 2 years working there was that the way that I philosophically thought about certain things was not the same philosophical approach as the rest of the leadership team. And there's nothing wrong with that. It wasn't like they're wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and they're right, or something like that. It was just very fundamentally different approaches to how we thought about really, really key aspects of how you run a business. And kind of how we think about how our organization should run, how you think about, planning, all these different topics. I think we just had very fundamental differences in beliefs about. And again, I don't think there's anything right or wrong about those philosophies. It's just mismatched. And that was really tough because then I realized, okay, well, do I really want to spend the effort to try to get that alignment? Or am I kind of not the right person for this company if that's kind of, how the rest of the executive team thinks? And ultimately decided that, okay, this probably doesn't make a ton of sense, and made the decision to leave.
And I totally understand what you're talking about too, because if 80% of the company sees things one way and you're in the 20%, you're either going to fight a long, near impossible battle with just very difficult, or you could just go find people who are closer to what you think as far as philosophy goes. Yeah. And a lot of people struggle with that. I noticed when I was doing, I did a lot of talks in public, like at conferences and stuff before, and we would do Q&A portions after the talk. And a lot of people would ask me questions, and I'd find the underlying root thing is that they're in that type of situation. They don't really want to know how to lead their team better. I mean, that's the question. But then when you start digging and pulling the layer, well, why be more specific? They'll get down to that they just see it entirely different. So that's actually, there's a lot of people who don't leave, who do stay.
Right.
And they have very difficult time. Yeah.
But it's tough, right? Because like I said, really, really believe in the product. and love the team that I had built. But
you also have to watch how you spend your time, right? You want your life to be enjoyable. And if you find people who do have, let's just use the word compatible philosophies, or at least not identical, but like compatible, then you can take off and you can all have a real good time and you can build each other up and it can go. But if you're at philosophies that are at odds with each other, like if you're pro debt and you try to work at Dave Ramsey's company, it's just, you're going to hate your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be good. No, that was a really good story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. Calls to action. I mean, most people, 90% of people here, they're going to yahoo.com. They're interacting with Yahoo already on a very regular basis. So I think that wraps up. Is there anything else that you want to add there before we wrap it up?
I guess if I get to make a plug, I would maybe the plug I would make is all these surfaces in a lot of our websites, but actually our applications too. So if folks want to try out, if they haven't tried the Yahoo Mail app, or if they haven't used, any of our mobile applications, like download those and give them a try. Like there's a really cool feature in the Yahoo Mail app around managing your inbox, and it's almost like a gamified thing to kind of get to that zero inbox situation. I think it's kind of fun. So like I said, if your listeners haven't given those apps a try in a while, definitely give them another look.
This is a good excuse to log into your Yahoo account and check out the new mail interface. Oh wait, Olivia said something. She said, "Love this plug. In addition, Lee, would you want to share a little about your sports broadcasting background? That's unusual for a CTO."
Sure, I can cover that briefly. So at Stanford, I joined a club. Well, actually, this ties in with your singing thing too, by the way. So ever since my voice changed as a teenager, I've had so many people go to be like, "Oh, you should sing," and I actually did try singing in high school, by the way, and the choir teacher was like, "No way! Like this is, just don't." She's kind of like, let's maybe do something else. So it's okay. Yeah, it's maybe not for me. When I got to Stanford, a bunch of other people were like, "Oh, you should sing," and I was like, "No, I don't think so." Like, "Oh, but there's so many a cappella groups, blah blah blah." But there was a club for radio, KZSU radio at Stanford. Actually, it's really cool. The university runs its own radio station. It's open to both students and the local community. And the original radio equipment was built by an electrical engineering student who later became the chief head of the radio station. So he built all the equipment originally, and is still using that equipment today. Anyways, so I said, okay, yeah, let me check out this sports broadcasting thing, and went on one of their kind of like guest segment things where it was one of those everyone yelling at each other, sports segments where you're like, everyone has a different opinion about like, what's going to happen next week or, whatever. And everyone's, it's one of those talking heads, just everyone kind of giving their opinion shows. And that segued into, I eventually became the play-by-play and color announcer for Stanford women's basketball. So I covered women's basketball for 2 years, so 2 full seasons. And then in my final year as a senior, I covered baseball, mainly because by that point, I didn't want to travel anymore. And so I split the schedule with someone else where I said, okay, for the baseball Tuesday night home games, I'll do those because the baseball schedule is so long. So I'll do those. And then you all do the rest. But the women's basketball years, those 2 years were incredible because I got to travel with the team, visit tons of interesting places, small university towns you may not ever go to, except for the fact that, you're playing them in basketball.
That is the coolest in I've ever heard. I'm going to be the announcer, so I get to travel with the women's sports team.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like, I mean, I don't think I would, should I name these cities? Yeah, I guess it's okay. Like, well, no, I mean, like, is there a reason to go to Corvallis, Oregon, or Lubbock, Texas?
Hey, Lubbock, that's where my dad's from.
Right, except for like, okay, I mean, yeah, Lubbock, like, I think it's half the population is Texas Tech at least, right? And so I don't know if I would ever get to go to Lubbock, except that
there's not much there. Yeah.
Right, except that I got to go, broadcast this game and got to explore Lubbock. That was cool. So it was super fun to get to travel with the team, see all these different college towns, and learn a lot about basketball. Honestly, I love sports. Also another good reason to work at Yahoo. And I really got to connect with the team and the coaches and the players, and that was super fun.
Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a colleague who you think would get value from it. And if you have topics that you would like to hear discussed on the podcast, either add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, joel@moderncto.io. Every time I get an email or LinkedIn message, it absolutely makes my day and inspires me to keep going.